Genesis 3:16, alternate translation. To the woman he said, you will greatly increase into humanity, but the males of humanity will bring forth the seed of the lineage of this conception with idolatrous labor, and the females will bring forth children with hard physical labor. And both the males and the females of humanity shall long for that idolatrous labor that results in the hard physical labor of childbirth, and that desire shall rule over you. What is the idolatrous labor?
The relationship with the snake, creation.
No, the idolatrous labor is actual sexual intercourse. You can't do that with a heart condition, You have a heart attack, that's the end of your sex life. Okay? It's labor. Can you deny that it's labor?
Right, yeah.
Can you deny that it's labor? Can anybody deny that it's labor? Okay? Sexual intercourse is labor. And the scripture calls it idolatrous labor because it is a satisfaction that has nothing to do with God. It is a self-satisfaction. Can you hear that? This is really interesting because I didn't go into it, but there is that verse in Ephesians chapter 2 where Paul talks about the circumcision and the uncircumcision. I don't know if any of you picked it up when I just read through, but Paul is actually talking about masturbation in that verse. That's actually what he's talking about. So the scripture is pretty racy. Nobody preaches it that way, and it wasn't translated properly. But we'll get to that in part 2 when we get to that actual verse. But that's what, when I prayed about it, this is what the Lord told me he's talking about. Idolatrous labor. Labor that does not glorify God in any way. You will bring forth the lineage of this creation with a labor, okay, that satisfies yourself, which is idolatry. Read it again. And, okay, you will desire it. You will desire this labor, okay, that is idolatrous, and it shall rule over you. Fast forward to the New Testament, Paul's saying, it's better to be single. If you can lead your virgin around, and that's not talking about your virgin daughter or your virgin sister, if the mind of God, and you can rule over your spiritual soul so that you can live without human sexuality, because it's easy. Listen, brethren, I'm never telling you not to do it. I'm preaching the Bible to you. Once you come to a place where you're in a relationship with God, you're better off single. Because marriage, what did Paul say about marriage? You will always have, everybody's mind is blinded, tribulation. Paul said, every marriage has tribulation, okay? And it interferes with your walk with God. So if you can lead your virgin around, okay, if you can lead your virgin soul, if the mind of God in you can be the authority over your virgin soul, because your soul wants to get married and have sex. Everybody wants to have sex. God says you need to get married to have sex, so Christians want to get married to have sex. There's nothing wrong with getting married to have sex, as long as you treat your wife properly. I've preached on this before, brethren. There are all different kinds of reasons for getting married. Sometimes it's because you're madly in love with the person, but what makes you madly in love with them, It's all involved in that, and that love that you have for that person is your human need for sexuality. There's nothing wrong with it. That's society's answer to your human need for sexuality. But it's an activity that does nothing to enhance your relationship with God. So Paul says, if your mind of God is strong enough to lead your virgin soul around, because if you haven't had sex with a male spirit, you're a virgin soul. If your mind of God, if Christ in you is strong enough to lead your virgin soul, which wants to get married, your soul wants to get married, your emotions want to get married and have sex. There's nothing wrong with it if you're married. But if you have a relationship with Christ and you're called to something higher, there's a conflict. If you're strong enough to live without it, then you shouldn't get married. So you have to make a decision, which is better for you. If God gives you the choice, you have to make a decision. What's better for you? if you don't get married, are you going to be suffering so because from a lack of sexuality and affection and the whole thing that goes with it, that human closeness, okay? Is that going to cause more of an upheaval in your relationship with God than an upheaval that would be caused if you were married and your mate disagreed with what you were doing? Which is the worst upheaval? Which is the more difficult upheaval? Which is the greater distraction in your life? Your body clamoring and your emotions clamoring for something it doesn't have, interfering with the relationship with God, who will help you to deal with that if you give it to him, or a human mate that's causing trouble in your life because you're not home often enough, or you're studying too often, or whatever, however, or she doesn't agree with, or he doesn't agree with what you believe, or which is the better situation to be in? Paul is saying the better situation is to be married to God. But if you can't do it, then get married. Neither situation is ideal. There is trouble, there is pain, there is stress in both situations because we are fallen. See? Your better choice is to be married to God and be celibate. If you can't do it, get married. If being celibate is causing you such an upheaval and such unhappiness in your life that you think you would actually be better off with a human mate and don't tell me that I talked to him or her before we got married and they fully agree that I should serve God. Don't give me that, because after 1 week that's out the window with all the other promises that were made to you that aren't kept after you get married. Know all the facts. Understand your choices. What did I just mean? Did I just insult everybody that get married? No, brother. People have the best of intentions. And then as soon as they start getting upset, everything changes. Well, I meant it when I said it, that I wouldn't interfere with your walk with the Lord. But you're out 4 nights a week and I'm just really upset that you're gone. Emotions, people's emotions. They mean it when they say it. Then when you actually experience it, it doesn't work. I gave you this testimony before. My nephew at the time was a New York City cop. And his wife was an engineer. And they agreed that he would work nights and take care of the baby during the day when she was working. He did it for 1 week or 2 weeks. And he said, taking care of this baby is deteriorating my toughness. I'm going to get killed in New York City if I'm not tough. And that was the end of that deal. He meant it when he said it. See? So when you weigh the circumstances and make your decision, you need to assume the worst. Maybe it won't happen, but you need to assume the worst. That if you're married, there will be tribulation. Paul said that over anything, you know. But there will be some discomfort and stress over your serving God. And that it could be bad enough to really break up the marriage if it's severe enough. That's one gamble. The other gamble is marriage to God, where you're celibate, you know? And you have God who is never fighting with God unless you're in sin, who loves you, who will help the lusts of the flesh, and will satisfy you in many other ways. Choose. But don't deceive yourself. To say, well, I love him or her, and that'll never happen. Don't be deceived, you say. Know that if you choose marriage, you're taking a big gamble. What kind of gamble? That it will interfere with your walk with God. And we just learned in Ephesians 1 that the whole purpose for your existence is to have a relationship with God. Now this is an interesting message. We're all over the place today, are we not? Okay. So to the woman he said, you will greatly increase into humanity, but the males will bring forth the seed of the lineage of humanity. The seed of the lineage of this conception, which is humanity. It will continue on with idolatrous labor. And the females will bring forth children with hard physical labor. And both the males and the females of humanity shall long for that idolatrous labor. They will long for sex. Is that not true? People long for sex. And that desire of longing for sex shall rule over you. So everybody got married in days past. How to get married. It was how we kept society intact. Keep it in marriage, otherwise you have kids all over the place, you don't know who the fathers are. You have to have a rule in society, get married.